Hello, thank you for clicking on the video. Sorry I've not been around much recently. Just got busy with work and life and family and all that sort of stuff. And then a few days ago I thought, oh, I'll go and film something. And it was like 3 million degrees in this room, so I couldn't do it. But it's a little bit cooler today, so I'm going to bring you a relatively quick video. Today I'm talking about 5 fragrance clones that I think smell better than the originals. One last bit of preamble before I get into the list. These fragrances are in no particular order, and also a lot of these fragrances I have mentioned or have done full reviews on or something like that on my channel, and I will link all the videos in the description down below. Right, let's get on with it. The first fragrance I want to talk about is Alexandria Fragrance's Brooklyn Fragrance Lover. Now, if you don't know, this is a clone of By Kilian's Angel Share. Now, this fragrance sets the trend for this video really, in the sense that the clone has just been made that little bit more kind of easygoing and more mass appealing compared to the original. They've taken out some of the, what some sort of may say is kind of harsher, more intense kind of accords, and they've just dialed them down and just made it a little bit more easygoing. So in the opening, in the original, you get a real strong, intense boozy cognac. The booziness is present in the Alexandria Fragrances version, but it's been dialed down loads. And the cinnamon comes in a lot sooner, and as that's been amped up a little bit more in the Alexandria version. And then into the dry down, in the original, the oaky accord that you get is a real deep, intense, woody kind of accord from that oak. It's really strong and sort of prominent. And again, that's been dialed down a lot in the Alexandria fragrance version. And so I would say the cinnamon in general is a lot more present and obvious in Brooklyn Fragrance Lover, and you lose some of that intense kind of oakiness, and it's a little bit sweeter as well. So the kind of tonka and vanilla that brings in that sweetness has just kind of been turned up a little bit. So in general, you're just left with just a much more kind of easygoing, mass appealing, sort of relatable fragrance, I guess, to sort of the average Joe. So if you are a hardcore frag head that want those intense, like deep kind of accords and notes, then by all means stick with the original. But if you want that just sort of eased off a little bit and smoothened off, so just to appeal to the masses, then by all means check out the Alexandria Fragrances version. The next fragrance has got a very similar story, to be honest, because it continues this trend of just essentially making the fragrance that little bit more mass appealing. I'm talking about Oud Wood from pocketscents.co.uk. Now, I would say compared to the last fragrance that I talk about, the Brooklyn Fragrance Lover, this one is a lot closer to the original. So there's not that much in this, but I do just slightly prefer the Pocket Scents version because it's just ever so slightly sweeter. I mean, don't get me wrong, Oud Wood, the original from Tom Ford, is a mass appealing fragrance. I think it's a great fragrance because it appeals to kind of frag heads as well as your sort of average Joes and sort of muggles. But I would say the pocketscents.co.uk version, for me personally, I just prefer. The oud is definitely there, but it's obviously not a skanky barnyardy oud. It's a very kind of nice, pleasant woody oud. I'd say it's been turned down ever so slightly, and the sweetness has been turned up ever so slightly. So it just means it's just a little bit sweeter, and that for me just makes it just that little bit easier to wear and a little bit more mass appealing. But compared to the last fragrance, this one is a lot closer to the original. So yeah, there's not much in it. So this obviously is a lot cheaper as well. So that's another reason why you might want to check out pocketscents.co.uk. I had to include this fragrance, didn't I? Because I recently featured it in my top 10 favourite fragrances of all time. I'm talking about Royal Equestrian from the house of Alexandria Fragrances again. So in case you don't know, this is a clone of Leighton by Parfum de Marly, which is also one of my favourite fragrances of all time. But when I prepared and filmed and sort of that video that I just mentioned, which I'll link down in the description below, I got really sort of fussy, and I really started comparing the two, and I started wearing them side by side. And you know what? I think Royal Equestrian just smells that little bit better than Leighton. Again, I emphasise I love Leighton. I happily own Leighton. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a brilliant fragrance. But I have actually had more compliments on Royal Equestrian, which I know that is not the deciding factor, but I do think I slightly prefer it. I would say if I was comparing the two, Leighton is probably a little bit more versatile because it's a little bit fresher. It's a little bit kind of greener and fresher. Not that it's a particularly green, fresh fragrance, but it's just ever so slightly sort of greener and fresher than Royal Equestrian. So for that reason, it just makes it that little bit more versatile. Well, I'd say Royal Equestrian is not quite as fresh, but it's just that little bit sweeter again. So for that reason, again, it just makes it just really easy to wear and super mass appealing, but it's not quite as versatile as the original in my opinion. But yeah, definitely worth checking out both because it's just an amazing DNA and it's one of my favorite DNAs of all time. Next up is a fragrance from Perfume Parlour. Now they are one of the original OG clone houses for me. They are one of the first clone houses that I discovered that I just got really excited by. They just had such a massive collection, different sizes, so I didn't have to spend too much money. I could just try loads of different fragrances. So because of them, I just got to try loads of DNAs and it really opened the floodgates to this most ridiculous hobby, and let's be honest, it is ridiculous. The fragrance I want to talk about is Immortal for Men 1871. It's their version of Elysium by Roger Parfums. Now, there's a few different kind of bottles and versions and lotions and all sorts on their website, but the version that I've got that I'm talking about, what I'm referring to in this video, is in the posher black bottle, and they call it an extract. So that they do like a kind of just a normal spray, but yeah, mine's definitely in the black posher bottle. But the adjective that I always use for this whenever I'm comparing it to the original is juicy. I just find their version juicier than the original. The vetiver is there, it's still a super clean, fresh fragrance, but it's just, I think the sort of orangey mandarin kind of chord in there, it's just been amped a little bit. And it's just a really nice, natural kind of smelling. It doesn't smell synthetic or, you know, like sometimes citruses can smell a bit like, you know, kitchen cleaner and all that sort of jazz. But their version doesn't. It smells definitely the orangey kind of accord has been amped a little bit, and it's just a really nice, natural, juicy kind of smelling citrus, which is super lovely. So for that reason, I just much prefer their version compared to the original, and I definitely prefer the price tag. But yeah, most of you know I'm a big fan of kind of mandarin and those orangey accords. So for me personally, this fragrance really, really works. So yeah, if you love orangey kind of juicy fragrances, or if you just like the original but you'd like it to be a little bit more citrusy, then by all means check out Immortal for Men 1871. The last fragrance I want to include in this video is from the house of Rosa Salas, and it's called Congo. Now it's their version of Nascimato's Black Afghano. Now I wanted to include this fragrance in the video because not only have I not really mentioned it on this channel before, and it is, in my opinion, I do prefer their version to the original, but my mate Shaz, shout out to him, absolutely fucking loves this fragrance. I sent him a sample of it because I've learned to know what sort of fragrances he likes, to be honest. So I sent it to him, I was like, check this out, and he absolutely fell in love with it, and he bought a bottle, he's used it all up, he's gonna buy another bottle now. So yeah, I thought it kind of, he messaged me literally a couple of days ago saying I need to get another bottle of that, and it sort of reminded me, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna feature that in this video. Because, you know what, it is, in my opinion, just a slightly nicer version, but now I need to kind of balance this because there's people who are gonna come at me. I emphasise, like, Nascimato's Black Afghano is an amazing fragrance, and if you're a proper frag head, you'll really appreciate it and really enjoy it. But I think if you're a bit more of a basic bitch like me, you might be like wearing it, you just might be a little bit self-conscious that some people are going to be loving it and some people won't be. Because it is just designed for fragrance lovers that want really intense, full-on, impactful fragrances, and by all means, if that's your bag, go for it. But if you are, as I say, a basic bitch like me, or if you want your fragrances to not be as, I don't want to use the word challenging, but you know what I mean, not as kind of full on, perhaps you're in more of a customer service role where you're not looking to challenge anybody or kind of push your preferences and your hobby onto somebody. You just want to smell really good and a little bit more kind of mass appealing, then the Rosa Salas version I think could be a good shout because it carries that DNA. It's definitely there, it's definitely kind of recognizable and comparable, but they've just made it that little bit more, they've just softened it up a little bit. They've rounded off the edges. They've taken out any, I don't want to use the word harshness because it's not a harsh fragrance, but they've taken out the sheer intensity of Black Afghano just to make it just a little bit easier to wear. It's just a little bit safer. As I say, my mate fucking loves it and I definitely prefer it to the original, but I'm sure there's a lot of people will come at me for that and say you can't, that's sacrilege. And by all means, I get it, don't get me wrong, but if you, as I say, if you want something that's just a little bit, you could just wear with a little bit more confidence, in the sense that you're not going to be quite as divisive as the original, then I definitely recommend Congo from Rosa Salas. And also there's a cheeky little discount code in the description below, which will get you 10% off. So if you want to kind of use that, by all means do. If you don't want to use it, don't. I'm not fussed, you know what I mean? There you go, that's it. 5 fragrance clones that I think smell better than the originals. Comment down below any fragrances that you think I missed out, any kind of fragrance clones that you think smell better than the originals. Have you bought a fragrance clone, thought, yeah, that smells good, I'm gonna get the original, and then you've been a little bit disappointed because you prefer the clone? It's happened a few times for me, as per the video. So yeah, let me know down in the section below, I'll be really curious. Other than that, thanks for watching, do really appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe and all that shit, you know the score, and I'll see you for a video soon. Take care, much love.